Narcissistic people are incredibly self-entitled and believe that they should have everything their own way, even though they'll project out onto you that you're the one that's making it all about yourself, so that they don't have to take responsibility for their behaviour because they've shifted that responsibility over to you. They lack the empathy to care about you, and they're willing to go all out to exploit you to get their needs met because they believe they are special, they believe they are superior, they are arrogant enough not to see any wrongdoing within their behaviour, and if anyone is to point out any of their wrongdoing, they simply find a scapegoat to shift the blame over to, so they don't have to face the consequences for their actions. Therefore, there's going to be several things that is going to trigger a narcissistic person to suffer a narcissistic injury, which is a psychological wound to the narcissist, which then in turn can lead to a narcissist going into a narcissistic rage, where they're going to flip out at you and find a way to blame and shame you and claim that if you hadn't, they wouldn't. Look what you made me do. It's your fault. You wouldn't leave me alone. As narcissistic people are incredibly hypocritical, so they're allowed to push you, they're allowed to provoke you, they're allowed to wind you up and humiliate you and criticize you and say no to you. And once they've got you going, if you react to them, then you're the one with the issues, you're the one that's having a bad day, you're the one that needs help. Yet if they react to you, then you're the one that made them do it. So when it comes to dealing with narcissistic people, the best way to deal with them is don't, because you're not going to win with these kinds of people. Those who recognise their behaviour and see what they do believe they can just get away with it. Those who don't recognise their behaviour don't see themselves as the problem and just find a way to blame and shame you. There's lots of different things that are going to cause that narcissistic injury, and one of those first things is when you no longer play their games, when you're no longer playing a game with them, when you're no longer falling to their behaviour, when their manipulation is no longer working on you. They fear exposure, so they don't want to let you get to a point where you could potentially recognise their behaviour and expose them. So when you're no longer playing their games, a narcissist will often double down on their behaviour in order to get you to play their games again. One of the first methods a narcissist might do to double down is play nice, to lull you into that false sense of security. If that doesn't work, they might play the victim to gain that sympathetic attention. If that doesn't work, they might start throwing the false accusations at you so that you have to defend yourself to them. When that doesn't work, they might start accusing you of not caring about them. When that doesn't work, they can actually potentially get physical. They tend to double down on their games when you're no longer playing, to suck you back into their games so that they can find a way to turn everything onto you. Another thing narcissistic people don't like is you being happy. Narcissistic people are some of the most miserable people you could ever meet, which is why they need that supply from others. When they're getting that attention and that admiration from others, it gives them that external source of happiness. Yet when they see you happy, they have that anger and that hatred and that envy, and they seek to take you down to feel better about themselves. If they're the person who's responsible for your happiness, then that's okay. However, if they're not the person who's responsible for your happiness, that isn't okay. But like other people's success, if they can take the credit for your success, then in the narcissist's mind, that's okay. If they can't take the credit or they can't benefit in some way, they're going to go all out to sabotage that success for you. When you say no to a narcissist, narcissistic people don't care for your boundaries. They lack the empathy to do so. They just see it as a challenge and a game on to double down their behaviour, to get you to change your no into a yes, to serve them. When a narcissist isn't being put first, as they require that excessive admiration, that excessive attention, them not being put first criticises them. they don't see this as an issue within themselves. If they've not been put first, they'll turn around and say things to you such as, oh, I forgot it's all about you. You know, the world doesn't revolve around you, because they believe you're taking the spotlight away from them. They don't recognise this as projecting who they are as a person out onto you. They just recognise that their needs aren't being met because they are very self-centred and all about getting their own way. So when they're not being put first, they take offence to this. They turn around and say things such as, well, if they're more important to you than I am, to try and get you to put them first, when they're no longer gaining your emotional reactions. Narcissistic people need your emotional reactions. They need your positive emotional reactions and admiration so that they can feel superior, so that they can feel happy within themselves, so that they can manipulate you. If they can get that strong desire from you to make it work with them, they can manipulate you into staying around for as long as they need you. If they can get you to romanticize about a future together, they can manipulate you and give you that false hope. If they can get you to trust within them, they can manipulate you to get their needs met by you. So when they're no longer getting those positive emotions from you, they blame you. They accuse you of being the one who has changed on them. And then they will go all out to provoke those negative reactions. They'll go all out to provoke jealousy and anger and resentment and hatred and frustration and pain to get those negative reactions from you. And once they've got that negative reaction from you, they feel happy that they've taken you down, that they've hurt you. They get a pleasure out of your pain and pain out of your pleasure, unless they can take the credit for your pleasure, unless they can be the one who has made you happy. But nobody makes them happy, they make themselves happy. So when a narcissist is no longer getting that supply of emotions from you, they prefer the positive. They prefer the admiration and the gratitude and the positive attention. However, when they can't get that, they're going to go all out for the negative. They're going to get that negative reaction from you to feed themselves, to feel better, to feel superior, to exploit who you are as a person. So when you're no longer giving them the emotional reactions they require, this offends them. When you call them out on their behaviour, narcissistic people are arrogant enough to believe they're allowed to do as they please. They're entitled. So when you call them out on their behaviour, they take great offence to this, as how dare you try to stop them? Who do you think you are as a person? So calling a narcissistic person out is going to trigger a narcissistic injury and potentially put you in danger. When you cut off your supply, narcissistic people are reliant upon that external source of supply from others so that they potentially don't have to be alone with their own negative thoughts and feelings. They require those positive emotions from others to, in one sense, feed their mind. And when they're not getting it, they take offence to this when you cut off your supply, which is often why they seek to find supply elsewhere, and if at all possible, find supply where they can punish you, because they're looking for that revenge, because they believe that you are the one that was the problem, which is often why they will turn around and say to you, they tell themselves, they will turn around and say to you, well, if you'd have paid me more attention, because they genuinely believe that. They don't see the wrong in their behaviour. They look to find a way to blame you for their very unjust, unreasonable, hurtful, toxic, spiteful, revengeful behaviour. And when you go no contact, they often find a way to blame you as to why you've gone no contact, accuse you of being selfish and awkward and stubborn. They don't recognise it as they pushed you to that point. They accuse you of not caring about them. And when you have gone no contact, this is usually when they're going to up their games to try and get that negative reaction from you. No matter how much you beg a narcissist to stop, they will keep going to push you past your limits. And then once they get you there and they get that reaction from you, they can blame everything on you and they feel better because they've managed to gain that emotional reaction from you. There are lots of things that narcissistic people are offended by. Any you notice, please add into the comments for people reading through. This isn't to go out to offend a narcissist. This is to explain why they up their games when you no longer give them supply, why it puts you in danger when you call them out, why they up their games when you go no contact. This is things that, if at all possible, can be avoided. However, things such as no supply, not playing their games, saying no, can't be avoided. So you have to do it in a way that a narcissist understands, which is by no longer giving your supply. You have to find a safe place to ride out the storm, because narcissistic people do get bored. And they do look, unfortunately, to gain that supply elsewhere. And when they've got that supply elsewhere and they've run out of games to play on you and they're not getting what they need from you, most narcissistic people will eventually leave you alone. Thank you very much to all the returning subscribers and your continued support with the channel. It's greatly appreciated. If you are new to the channel, I'm Elizabeth Shaw. This channel is all about narcissistic behaviour, to give you more understanding of the people you might be dealing with within your life, how to handle yourself around those people if you cannot go no contact, and different methods to find what works for you to help you understand and overcome narcissistic and emotional abuse. If you do find the information helpful on the channel, please do subscribe. If you are looking for further help and support in understanding and overcoming narcissistic and emotional abuse, I do have several online guides available, and those teachable links are in the video description. If you're looking for someone to speak to, I have partnered with BetterHelp, and their sponsored link is also in the video description. I do have a new book out on Amazon now, which is 15 Rules to Deal with Narcissistic People. I shall add the link to that in the video description as well. Go out there and create the day that you deserve, because you do deserve to have an amazing day. Bye.